afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Systems for Sanity podcast. I have my guest today, Bailey Killian. We've been working together for quite some time, Bailey, and I wanted to kind of have you give you an opportunity to share with our audience kind of what you do, what you were doing before, and what it's like owning a business. Because I know you had your own consulting business for a while, and kind of where you see technology going over the next couple of years, and then we can kind of wrap things up with AI. You know, AI is a very hot topic all the time, and people have varying appreciation for it or lack thereof. So I'll let you get started. Introduce yourself and tell us a little bit more about what you do.
Absolutely. Well, like you said, my name's Bailey Killian. I do have my own business. It's called Killian Consulting. I started it over 10 years ago, 2015, I think, was when I wanted to start helping small businesses. I have a lot of different friends or acquaintances that work in small businesses, and the things that are amazing about that is, and I always go back to one of my friends from Kingsville. You know, she's a baker. She makes amazing cakes, right? And she decided, people would want to buy them from her. I'm going to start a business and I'm going to bake these cakes. But what always happens for small business owners, right, is they open a business to do the thing that they're good at, the thing that they love. But you opened a business, so now you have to spend time running the business. And maybe that's not the thing you're so good at. You don't know all the formation docs, the tax docs. It's a thing. You start it for the service. You don't think about the other half. And that's where I come in, because I'm a guy who likes to make businesses for fun. Setting up the systems and processes at their core, that's what I love to do. So I got into working in, but that ends up being primarily marketing and technology. That ends up being the basis of what people need. It's I can bake the cake. I don't know how to have the website and the phone system and any operating software that I'm going to use to manage my orders or things like that. So right. I'm the guy that can break that down into, okay, well, what are your options? Like if you're starting really small, we can get you just using, PayPal or whatever. Or if you're really doing bulk volume and you need a proper ordering system, then we change into, we're going to use Stripe for your credit cards and your invoicing and your transaction. So you get somebody who might start with, I don't know, I just send somebody a text and they Venmo me. That's a thing, and there are many businesses that function that way, but it's how do you scale that so that you can grow or to be able to handle the level of workload. And right. Being somebody who that's all I do is I look at it and I see those systems and processes. That was my favorite thing. I was like, okay, I'm going to make the business of helping people. So literally my business motto was, my business is building your business.
That's awesome. And speaking of systems, I know we had partnered on that real estate client a while back, and you had set up their entire website and you had a very sophisticated system on the back end. A lot of times we have to come to you, and if it wasn't a simple update or a tweak or verbiage change, because it's a very unique, purposeful design specific to them, and we weren't party to all the nuance in the setup originally, it's easiest just to come to the person that created that system, and we were able to get your help a number of times to resolve little tiny issues and stuff like that.
And I like to try. I like to make things not be dependent on me, but sometimes you end up in very nuanced situations like that where it's not that it's hard, but if you just didn't build it, you don't know that this piece connects to that piece to connects to that piece.
Right, because they're all systems. They all integrate in some way, form, or fashion. Kind of when we were... when I was coming up with the name SD Tech, I didn't want to be pigeonholed into one particular vertical that we may or may not be supporting at some future point in time. I wanted it to be more holistic, and so that's the idea behind system design technologies, computer design technologies or network design technologies or anything like that. So you see other companies, there's one in particular that comes to mind. I think they're out of Austin, Pet IT. So very nice guys. We had met them probably about 2 years ago. Shane and I met them, had lunch with them, and they support, guess what, a lot of veterinary offices. So that makes sense, Pet IT, right?
Yeah.
But the challenge becomes when you want to venture outside of IT support for veterinary clinics, then all of a sudden you get in this situation where you want to pitch to an attorney's office. How seriously are they going to take you if you come and, what's your company name? Oh, it's Pet IT. They may not be very inclined to, use your services.
That, them being a pet, tech place, well, a lawyer isn't necessarily going to want to work with that because it's limiting them by nature of their name, whereas your name opens you up to all kinds of possibilities.
Right. And so company names, I would argue, is very important when you're deciding that, because you want to make sure that you don't pigeonhole yourself into a particular segment of the market or particular vertical. I envisioned, down the road, we'll get into networking at some point. At first, it was obviously a lot of break fix, because this was back in the early 2000s. A lot of break fix, client's computer stops working, they call us, Windows won't start or whatever the case may be, they call us, and, I'd go over there and fix their computer and figure out what the issue was. But as things got more advanced, it got into phone systems and networking systems, wireless and wired systems, all that kind of stuff, server systems, virtualization, yada, yada, yada. So yeah, it's interesting to see what technology has done over the years and how it's grown and expanded. What do you think in your time, in your business, what are some of the key points that you've seen massive improvements in technology or new systems that you started using that really helped you push your business forward?
So a lot of the work that we do, like you just talked about, it's about having a breadth of knowledge and then being able to really drill deep on a particular topic when it comes up. I ended up doing phone systems. My primary focus is building businesses and consulting, but I did VoIP systems because somebody who I was working with was setting up their business. They needed that option, so I drilled deep, had a depth of knowledge, did that too. So you have to be following all those different technologies because you're never really totally sure which one you're going to need to drill deep. In particular, right now, everything is AI. Every topic of conversation out there is AI. And what can AI do for me? AI can do amazing things. I think AI is great, and that is someone who, I have a master's degree in English who then went into technology. So a lot of people who do, literature and writing don't like AI because they think it's, cheating or it's cutting. It's like, it doesn't do the thinking for you. It just sets up frameworks. I think the biggest problems with any of the technologies that are out there right now is we want to imagine what it can do so much. We don't actually focus on what it's supposed to do. So I can build a tool that's going to help tedious work that I do, help make something that I do more efficient. It still can't actually do the job for me though, right?
Right.
And I can build any kind of automation to help trigger it, but there's still ultimately that you have to be the person who pushes the button. You have to be the person that I could spend 2 weeks walking the AI through all my different, in this case, maybe we're talking about Claude, right? Claude is a big one. I use Claude every day. I've got all kinds of tools for using Claude, but I will spend weeks and weeks developing the skills in Claude to help it improve one part of my job. That's maybe 5% of my work. It's not a major part. And so then you start to wonder, am I spending too much time trying to customize it so that I can do this thing? But once it does the thing, it now frees up other time for me to do better and focus on other stuff. And that's the thing, is it's about freeing up the time.
Things to then free up more time. Yep.
And that's where there becomes this misnomer like, oh, Claude's going to take my job. Claude's not going to take my job because, again, I still have to be the one that pushes the button. There's still the level of break fix. You know what happens? Claude gets an update and now the thing doesn't work anymore and you have to fix it. You have to set it up. There's still so many levels of access and permissions when it comes to technology, and the whole point is to not give it all of the access and the permissions. You give it some, you limit its controls to this sandbox of a task that I need you to do. Perfect example is like the Claude bot. Everybody was going nuts and buying the Mac minis, right? I'm going to connect it to my iPhone and I'm going to give it my whole life. And it's like, cool, you gave it too much. And then what people were figuring out is your AI can essentially be tricked to giving out your personal information because you, the person, gave it too much. You don't give it all those permissions. You don't give it all of those accesses. You limit it to focusing on a task. Focus on the small. It'll never replace the whole. Now, if I make, 3 different major things that Claude is doing and it takes, 5% here, 4% here, 7% here of the work that I'm doing, I've now freed up about 15% of my time, maybe 20. And I can now, like you said, learn, develop, do better on other things and just help improve overall processes. So I think the biggest thing people need to know with technology right now is because it's always coming back to AI. Any technology, like I love project management software. Absolutely love it when it's implemented and used correctly, right?
Yes.
Every single one of them now has their own AI. Does it mean it's going to magically do all your project management for you? No, not at all. It means I can use this AI to automate like a task. This one task does not have to be so tedious.
What's your system of choice? What do you like using?
For AI or for project management?
Project management.
So no affiliation whatsoever, but I recently found one called Hive, Hive. And that
Okay.
one I really, really like. It's funny because I've talked to, 3 different clients that I worked with and was like, hey, you should just be aware of this one. You should maybe use it. And for whatever reasons, whether they're attached to their old system or not, they're like, no, no. I'm like, okay, fine. I can't wait till I can find somebody who's going to use Hive. It has a lot of core functions like Asana. I really do like Asana, but there's always that 1 or 2 things that's like, oh, I really wish Asana did this. Cool, Hive does that. Or,
Okay.
it really bothers me that Asana will let people set a due date to be on a weekend. Hive has a specific check mark that you can say, don't allow tasks to be booked on a weekend. And it's such a simple little thing. And it just kind of has a nice, clean UI. I was always a big fan of Zoho apps and Zoho products. Oddly, can't stand Zoho projects. Sorry, Zoho, don't get mad at me. I really wish Zoho projects would have been great. It does not follow the UI that like all of the rest of the Zoho apps, though. So there's something about it that just doesn't make it seem like it's part of that ecosystem. To me, Hive is like Asana and Zoho had a baby. It has all the things I love in Asana, but has the nice, clean UI and the customization that I would have gotten with a Zoho product. So I'm like, this is great. I don't know where this one's been, and it's very underrated. It's not one of the top ones that's out there.
I wonder if Zoho purchased Zoho products, if that was maybe a third-party product that they purchased and integrated, and maybe that's why it has a different looking UI.
And it's just some of the way the functions and the properties. Project management, unfortunately, can be overly complicated, or they can be too simple. It's really hard to find that perfect in between. There's a lot of softwares that call themselves project management, but they're not. They're task management, and that is actually very different.
Right. The task management is very simplistic versus project management. There's different milestones and subtasks, and you need to be able to assign portions of those subtasks to different people or maybe multiple people.
But it's about actually managing. I have 30 different projects, one project for every client, or having that client management part that goes into it. So it's not even just the task. When you're really project management can go into managing those projects specifically, not just the tasks in the projects. And so many of the ones that are out there that are trying to be like, oh, we're great project management, like ClickUp, it's task management. ClickUp is about task management, not about project management. Right. So it's just very, very different.
We've, in some of the franchises that we've worked with, they use ClickUp, and I'm not a big fan of ClickUp. I've heard a lot of people use it, but when they were trying to share some of the projects with us, it wouldn't ever come across correctly. Like the ability to share out, you're adding us to the project, yet we can't see the project. Like, how are we supposed to interact with it? That was just very clunky, part of their system. And then I think the one they're using now is Delight Tree, which is a little more, I think, focused on multi-unit franchisors. So assisting them with rolling out new locations. So it's got, time-based milestones. So if your projected opening date is XYZ date, you can work backwards from that. 2 weeks before SD Tech's on site installing, 4 weeks before internet gets installed, 6 weeks before equipment's ordered, 10 weeks before estimates finalized or something like that. There's just a lot of flexibility, and you can easily move things up or down in the list. I think it's a lot better than ClickUp, but there may be nuances to what platforms are better for what different types of projects per se, franchisors or maybe construction and things like that. But
I found a great one for devs and development called Linear. It's amazing.
Yes, so I was unaware of this. It's funny you mention that because I'm not even kidding you. Not last night, but Monday night I was at the gym, and I don't know if are you familiar with AI acquisition?
Why do I know that? It's not triggering, but I know that. Because I use Cursor AI a lot, and this is what part of led me to Linear.
Okay, so AI acquisition, I'll have to dig into a little bit more. We could talk about it offline, but the short of it is AI acquisition offers us a platform to be able to do cold outreach to potential clients of all different kinds. So we could be using it for our franchise system to outreach to potential franchisees. We can use it for our MSP, SD Tech, to reach out to potential clients. A lot of times you can use different methods. You could use the direct method where you're sending a direct email saying, hey, I'd like to carve out some time with you to just, would it make sense to talk about your cybersecurity posture, things like that. Or you could try more of a soft sell where you could come in using a podcast with that person. You get content. They get content. Both of you guys get exposure. You have the opportunity to build a relationship. And then in addition to that, at the end, you could talk with them about like, hey, you mentioned earlier some pain points because we talked about technology. You said your internet goes down all the time. Would it make sense to set up a call to discuss some opportunities that we can bring to the table that might help reduce that for you guys? Oh yeah, that sounds great. So you've already established that relationship with them. It's much easier to then say, hey, we created something of value with this podcast. We're getting your name out there. Also, we can bring more value to the table by helping you with your technology. So it does this outreach. It's a very, very sophisticated system, and they've made a lot of improvements over the last couple of months. But in one of the calls the other day, they do almost daily calls where they have different reps from their team discuss different angles of the product, like maybe marketing angle or technology angle or business angle, all those kinds of things, kind of helping and coaching the people who are part of the system to better. And basically, the idea is you're pitching AI solutions to companies and automations and things like that. They specifically mentioned Linear the other day. They're using ClickUp currently, and they said we're migrating to Linear because it's better for devs. And I was like, Linear, I've never heard of it. I'll definitely have to look into it. And now here we are a couple days later, and you're specifically bringing it up. So tell me about Linear.
So Linear is nice. And again, I have no affiliation to any of these. I'm just a guy that likes to look at project management software and go, what do you do and what is your application? Because they all have different ones, right? So Linear, if you're working with any kind of development with devs, particularly things like GitHub, right? And you've got a repo that everybody's working on. And if you're familiar with GitHub, people know like, okay, I can go put an issue, I can do my pull requests, I can have a branch, and all of that's fine, but that doesn't really help you manage who's doing what if you have a team that's working on that repo. There could be a whole bunch of issues, but how do you manage who's working on what issue and at what time without assigning like, okay, this is the issue we're going to go focus on, let's put it into a task. So this is where Linear comes in. So Linear can directly connect a project to a GitHub repo. So when issues get posted, it's going to pull those issues into the repo or in the project management, right? This was where I learned about it because of Cursor. So Cursor AI is an IDE that has a lot of AI. So you can, whether you're using its own chat or you want to do Claude Code through the terminal, you can do that all through Cursor. You can actually assign an issue to Cursor in Linear. Cursor will go work on it and then come back and say, hey, I think this is the bug fix. Do you think it's good? So you can check it and then decide if you're going to then push it to the repo at that point. So you don't even have to necessarily take your time for you to go over here, take it into your IDE and work on it. You can just assign it to the IDE and tell it to work on that. And it'll come back when it's done and tell you, hey, what do you think? Good? Yes? No?
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, talk about a time saver. That's incredible.
So it's really thinking about development and AI along with GitHub in a project management. Like it's designed for that. I like to joke too. I'll be like, oh, well, like it's this one and this one had a baby. I used Notion a lot. Notion is great. It uses Markdown. You just have to spend a lot of time configuring it, and you have to be a person who really knows Markdown tools to do that. But once you do that, Notion can be great. I don't like that every task becomes too much. It's not just a task, it becomes a whole page. So then you can kind of get lost in, well, I was on this project, but then I clicked on this and now I'm like 5 pages deep because every task becomes a complete, whole sheet in Notion.
Oh, wow.
It can be nesting dolls of sheets if you're not paying attention, so it can be hard to focus.
Kind of go down the rabbit hole.
But it does have a really nice clean UI other than that. Linear, it's Cursor meets Notion at that. It's a project management software that was designed with AI and Cursor in mind and with GitHub. And if that's the kind of development work you're doing, heck yeah. And so it sounds like from what they're doing, they're moving to that. That's all they're doing is they're working on the development of this platform. So anytime they have an issue with it, all of that work that they're doing to build this and maintain this is now trackable through Linear.
Yes. Yeah, they're migrating to it as we speak. So that was very interesting. So I'll have to definitely check it out. I like looking into things and kind of learning more about what's out there. Speaking of AI, I don't know to what extent you've messed with integrating different applications together. Right now, the new version of our phone system has an AI hub built into it, which is pretty slick. Okay. So you can connect.
Like I said, everything's got AI now.
Yeah, everything has AI now, which is great. So it natively integrates within the phone system because we were looking at using Vappy. I don't know if you've seen Vappy before, but it's pretty slick. Yeah, it's Vappy.ai. Definitely check it out. It's great for writing AI receptionists. I think it does texting as well.
That would
if
be
you
cool.
have the number with Twilio. I have to look into it a little bit more, but we're exploring that as a initial triage of tickets and things like that when an incoming call came in. But there's a lot of complexity with integrating VAPI with some kind of intermediate layer in or communicating with the phone system, and then in addition connecting that to
The
through
CRM.
either like N8N or something else to SuperOps, which is what we use for our RMM. Well, now looking at the new version of our phone system, it has the option to add AI voice receptionists. They can also interconnect with other systems using their MCP layer. So that allows you to then obviously connect SuperOps. There's an MCP that's written for SuperOps, so it can then directly communicate. It can pass the information along and or do some basic remediation, like maybe restart apps or restart a service or something simple like that, that may be able to cut out a significant amount of trouble tickets that we get on the front end. So things like, hey, our timer service isn't working or something like that, being able to have it restart that timer service without requiring our technicians to intervene directly, and then marking the ticket, and then if it's resolved, then resolving the ticket as well. VAPI,
Connect.
yeah, it doesn't use VAPI to connect. It's got it natively within the phone system. So the AI receptionist is now directly integrated into the phone system, which is awesome. And then you can connect it to different LLMs or other automation platforms like 11 Labs and things like that. But what's nice is it has the functionality of that MCP layer, which then allows us to connect it with our RMM. So I can say, okay, use this information to gather contact info for a ticket, ask the client what's happening, create the ticket, notate the ticket. If it's this kind of issue, then use the MCP layer to interact with SuperOps and run this script. This will restart those services. Ask client if the issue is resolved. If yes, then say thank you, have a nice day, notate the ticket, close it out. If not, then put the client on hold and then notify one of the technicians, throw them into the call queue or whatever, notify the technician, hey, so-and-so is waiting in the call queue. This is the issue they're having, blah, blah, blah. It's ticket number XYZ.
It's an awesome automation.
Yep. Think about how
That's
useful that would be to other MSPs.
Yeah, just being able to field calls. I mean, that's half the time you get a customer that says, I got a guy that I was working with who's a barber, loves doing the barber work, hates having to answer the phone. Hates having to answer the phone and getting called all day while he's trying to work. And it's a little thing, and yet it can change for so many different workflows. So it's not just MSPs, but just anybody who I can't manage that right now. That's where we get into how do we have these technologies help and support those.
Yep. No, there's so much capability. So what have you been working on lately? Like what's the newest thing that you're really excited about in your business?
Businesses scale and flow. You're doing, amazing things. Mine toned down over the years, and it comes down to what do we know about businesses, right? You have to have you have to have the service, you have to have the business operations management, but you have to have the sales. And I've been a sales guy, but I'm not great about going out there and doing the pitches and selling them. And plus with me, I'm terrible about underselling myself. I know what my rate is, but then I'll be working with somebody who's like, well, I'm just starting my business and I want to get it going. And I just want to help them. So I don't want to be like, well, the reality is it's probably going to cost at least $2,000 to get you a decent website. And that can be hard. And you do web services too. So you get trying to tell somebody, I know you can go out there and get a Squarespace or something else for $200 and that can run a website. It won't do anything for you in your business. It won't help you.
Right.
It'll just exist. And then you spend a lot of time talking about why having their own website that actually works for them, that has their proper SEO structure matters, because it can bring them business when it's built out correctly versus, well, it's basically a landing page. A landing page and a website are not the same thing.
Yes.
So
Very, very
I ended up scaling back to, I just do a lot of development work these days. I do a lot of, like you and I have partnered on stuff if you've needed me to do some web work. I tend to work more with agencies than businesses or than individual businesses these days. And if they need somebody doing the development work or doing their quality assurance, I specialize in that. And then I kind of get to lean into the systems and processes of how do we improve our development structure, or how do we improve our project management. I started working with, like I said, I had an agency I'm working with recently that they use a particular software that's not really project management, but they've been leaning on it as their project management. So I'm trying to consult with them on how to actually implement that project management to help scale their business. And this is a fully functioning agency, and I believe they do great work, but they're starting to hit too many pain points even in their own agency because they don't have those systems in place. So, on one hand, I'm doing project management work over here, or another agency, I'm just doing, development. I just build sites on every now and then I do quality assurance on others.
Did I ever connect you with Heather, who owns Marketed?
I know you connected me with somebody at one point who had a Webflow site, and she wanted to talk to me about that, and then she just kind of stopped talking to me.
So we have a good friend of ours that she owns a marketing agency. I'm thinking if you do consultations for others, there might be an opportunity for you guys to partner on certain projects.
I'm always up for partnering and working with people because I'm good at these specific things, right? I'm good at the systems. I'm good at the development. I can help, like, oh, what are you doing with your operations and background? I'm not good at going out and doing the sales stuff, and that's not going to change. I mean, where I live, I'm not going to go door knocking and trying to sell businesses. There's different motivations. I found, I like to take toolkits from everywhere I go, and I worked with an agency that they were really big about using the EOS system, the Entrepreneurial Operating System,
Yep.
right? A lot of people use that one. I liked what the crystallizer test kind of goes into, and it talks about how you're either a visionary or you're an integrator, right? But there's a reason why you need both. The visionary is the one that really kind of pushes you to go and do more with your business, and the integrator is the one that's like, cool, but like, how do we do that like today? Like, what are the tasks that go? I'm a solid integrator. I think I score like a 92 on the integration of that test. I don't have a visionary partner on my business side, so this is why my business has been more helping others as they've come along. So if you're ever looking for good integrators, I know a guy.
You know a guy. Nice. Well, that is good to know. We do occasionally need, like this example I was just giving you with the MCP situation. I could probably figure it out. I'm smart on the tech side of things, but it's not my forte, and I would have to spend a lot of time learning. So maybe that's something that you and I could have a conversation on. What would that look like to get something like that set up? Are you familiar a lot with the Linux side of the house?
Oh yeah, I've been playing too much with Linux lately. You come and go, and everybody's like, oh, I love Mac or I love Windows, and it's like, I like too much control over my system, so I end up getting into Linux. I actually just built that computer myself recently, and it's a dual boot Windows and Linux because you can't totally leave Windows for a lot of operating stuff. So I'm a big fan of dual boot these days.
No, I mean, it makes sense. Why tie yourself down to just one platform or the other when you can just use both?
Mm-hmm.
There's no reason not to. So yeah, maybe we can have a conversation offline about that. I'd be interested in getting that up and running sooner than later. I think that would really help reduce the number of calls that our techs are having to take and or work through that are basic things, Whenever something doesn't work for me, I don't reach out to the vendor first thing. I restart it. And after you restart it, do whatever updates it has, and it still doesn't work, then yeah, I'll reach out to them and see if I can get some more support. But a lot of people don't think about that.
It's always funny when the tech guys have to call for support because then they want to be like, oh, well, did you restart it? Did you do this? I'm like, I promise I did all the things. I called you because I couldn't fix it.
I'm out of things to try, yeah.
Yeah.
I've read the manual, I've looked online, I've done all the things. Yep. No, that's about what it comes down to. But yeah, I think there's so much opportunity that I like the thought of perfecting this setup with the receptionist and the MCP integration with SuperOps, and then pitching that as a product.
Totally. It could totally be something that people are just anything to not have to answer those phones, right? And to have it go, because it's better than just a standard call routing, right? Of you're pushing a button to try to get somewhere, and then you always end up with the wrong person and they're having to transfer you over. This system really takes care of where are you supposed to go, getting you the help you need from both sides, from both the customer and the servicer.
Yeah, and it's AI where it makes sense. I'm not trying to resolve the ticket 100% start to finish. I'm trying to gather the information. That's a basic task. Run one or two basic scripts that are, non-destructive. They won't cause any kind of issues with the system. And those scripts are either going to resolve it or they're not. Yeah. And if it doesn't, great, connect them to a person. But we'll go through those basic steps first. Takes care of all of that stuff.
It's kind of like doing what a chatbot does, but into a phone system.
Right. Because by default, a lot of times they'll call in. They will text sometimes too, but the bulk of the time they call. Occasionally they email, but they're always usually so frantic when something goes down, they just pick up the phone real quick. It's like, oh,
Oh,
it's
that
broken. How do I
becomes
fix it?
a generational thing, right? There's a whole study about this generation likes to call, this generation likes the email or the chat, this generation's going to message you on social media and go, why is it broken?
Yep. Yeah, that's true. There's all these different personalities and all these different generations. So, yeah, it's definitely interesting. Where do you see technology going in the next, say maybe 2 to 3 years?
So 40, but I'm a millennial, right? And nobody realizes that the millennials got old. And it's interesting being a millennial because we've watched technology change so much. I mean, one of my favorite things about technology was I had an aunt who's working as like a director at AT&T in San Antonio. At the time, let me rephrase. At the time it was Southwestern Bell.
Yep, I remember
Southwestern
that.
Bell bought AT&T, and then everybody's like, no, AT&T bought them. I'm like, no, it was actually the other way around. Southwestern Bell bought AT&T, but AT&T had the global name, so they took the global name at the time of that purchase, right? And I remember going to lunch with her and my grandfather, because I think I was visiting my grandfather for the summer. And she pulls out her Palm Pilot. Remember those Palm Pilots, right? With you'd have your
Hmm.
little stylus to do stuff. And we're just like, oh my gosh, that's such, cool technology, right? And she said, yeah, my boss has one that has an antenna on it and he can send emails from his Palm Pilot. And I remember being a little kid and saying, can he make phone calls then too? And she's like, I don't know. I don't think so. I think it just does email. And for me, this is a very just core memory of when smartphones and technology were becoming a thing, right? It evolves from something so small and then changes, and we've had huge leaps in technology then in the last 30 years
Oh, yeah.
since people were using Palm Pilots. And I mean, Palm Pilot and BlackBerry did not make it in the market by the time other developers came in, so it's almost hard to fathom where it's going to go. We have hit a little bit, I feel, as hardware goes. We've started to hit kind of a plateau of our hardware is not really evolving and changing as much as, I mean, we were having huge changes every leap. I mean, watching the competition from mini discs and CDs jumping in, and now we don't even use that's hard material data storage. We
Yep.
all have, the
Everything streams.
iPod came in, right? And it's all hard drives, and then it's all SSDs, and then what's faster and smaller and can evolve and change this. I'll find a random thumb drive that I remember getting and thinking this is going to be the largest thumb drive I'm ever going to need my whole life. It was 16 gigs and it's like this big, and it's like, cool. I have a micro SD card in my laptop over here that's a terabyte. It's a little tiny micro SD and it's a terabyte. And I look at that 16 gig thumb drive and I think, how did we get here? So it's almost unfathomable to see where we're going to go because it's changing, but I think a lot of what is changing is less hardware these days, and it is more software. And this is where, like I said, AI is becoming a part of it. I think we're finding an interesting switch with software as a service. I was reading an article about this one not that long ago, because how many different subscriptions do you have for something? But then now you go, well, if you're a tech guy, right? If you're a tech guy, there's a great service that I love that's called Spling, and it's spl.ing. For web development, UA work, it's awesome. You can put in the website and it'll do a spell check and grammar check on the whole website. It'll tell you what pages are doing. Been using this thing for about a year. It's awesome, right? It was the only one out there too. I've been looking for something like that. Turned out it was a marketing agency who needed a tool, made it, realized other people might want it, and then made the software as a subscription. Was using it with a company for a while, and then Claude Code came out. And then buddy of mine spent a weekend and he basically made his own version using Playwright and has his own setup in one weekend. Now we don't need Spling. That's a whole software as a subscription that's out the window because you can now build it internally. That's going to be a huge change, but here's where it's a double-edged sword. Yes, I can build that software myself, potentially. But now am I dividing my attention building and supporting it when I should be working on something else? The whole reason why I was getting that software is so that it could do a job for me, so that I could focus my attention somewhere else. But now I'm not just using the tool, I'm having to do ongoing support for the tool. And it's the ongoing support that people never really think about. There's a reason why it's a subscription. It's not just to have it, it's so that somebody else is maintaining it and taking care of it. So we're in this weird limbo where a lot of SaaS is going out the window because people are building it internally. But then it's going to flip the other way because, well, we built all this stuff internally. It's too much to maintain now. Great comparison would be cable and direct TV, right? Huge bills we were paying, right? And then everybody stops doing that to instead, well, I'm just going to buy specific channels or I'm going to buy specific subscriptions, right? So maybe you have your CBS and you have your Showtime, right? But then what happens when now it's like I've got like 5 different logins for 7 different, subscriptions, and
Yeah.
I've got to go to Hulu to watch this one, but I got to go over here to Prime to watch that one. And why can't there just be one place that has all my TV? There was. So I'm curious to see what's going to happen right now. That's where I'm curious about technology going, is I'm seeing this downturn for SaaS. But at what point does it start to level back out because people stop trying to just build all the tools themselves because they don't want to support them? And then we find that balance to people who have SaaS have to have truly valuable software and not just, I kind of made a thing and it kind of does the job. But this goes back to what we were talking about with project management, is there's some that are out there that are really selling like, hey, I'm project management, except you're not. Your task management, or you do completely other things that if I have to spend so much time configuring you, you're not worth it. I'll go do it myself. I'll just go build it. And how do you find that balance?
No, yeah, it's true. And I think all products are, especially SaaS products, are having to step up and offer more and be more reliable. I remember thinking off the top of my head about industries that have a ton of software that's really expensive. And I don't know about these days, I haven't really kept up to it with it as much, but real estate. I mean, there used to be a lot of software products back in the day, and they were, a lot of them very expensive and not that great. It's kind of like you have a very niche, vertical like real estate that requires very specific tools and programs to make those realtors' lives better, but they just get the basic functionality. They don't put a whole lot of thought into the UI, and then the program's buggy. And
so I was working with a real estate company, and one of the amazing things I heard them say at one point, and this was at their headquarters level, not at the local level, was that they weren't going to be a real estate company anymore. They were going to focus on being a technology company that specialized in real estate. And I'm like, that's awesome. I can get behind that. That being said, the implementation failed. I don't feel like they were able to pull it off because, like you said, they didn't focus. And sometimes it's simple things like, well, we're going to put full name or first name, last name everywhere. Cool. That doesn't actually count for a proper UI structure of development of first, middle, last. They would get bogged down by their own limitations, but they built it so early into their framework that now it's just too hard. It's making it too difficult. And real estate is an industry that needs technology development, but it's also an industry that has its primary users don't want technology. They still want to have paper. And it's going to be a struggling shift for probably still another 10, 15 years for real estate before I think they really get on board. And I say that because we're in Texas. We legitimately know Texas, depending on where you're at in Texas, can be a few years behind waves of trending changes. And this is not just technology. This is music. My favorite one was I went on a cruise back in like 2010, and I heard a song called, and everybody's doing this dance, and I'm like, what is this? And I was in college, and I came back, and I was telling my friends about this song, and they're like, no, there's a dance. And they're like, what are you talking about? 2 years later, that Wobble song is playing all over the place, and everybody knows it. And that was the first time I really realized how long it took for that kind of a trend. I mean, I'm on a cruise ship where everybody knows it. And I'm bringing it down, and nobody knows what I'm talking about. Now it gets played every like 30 minutes, right? But it took solidly 2 years. We're still in that here in Texas. And so you've got a population of users that they're laggards when it comes to technology. And that's not a negative word. It's just a reality. You have early adopters, you have your standard users, and you have your laggards, the one who are going to take the longest, and they're going to go to the very last minute before you absolutely force them to do it. And even then, they're still probably going to ask you, do I have to?
They'll be like, that fang-dangled technology, it's always messing up all the time.
And I will say in their defense, having been the guy that was having to teach them about a software, I had one tell me, but why am I going to bother to learn this? You're just going to change it in 2 years anyway. If I just drag my feet, told me to my face, if I just drag my feet and don't learn what you're teaching me, I can wait it out. And I thought, like, no, you're crazy. This is it. This is the one. They were right. The technology got shifted because contracts, agreements, partnerships. I've watched them go through 3 different document-based software programs because they can't find one and it's all, well, who's going to give me the best deal? But it kind of creates these hurdles of training and
Yes.
adoption. And they can't adopt because they can't train because you just taught them one software and now you've completely changed it to another because your contract expired. And so now you move to another one. So it's almost not real estate's fault, but it's going to take at least 10, 15 years before technology truly, I think, makes an impact at the place that somebody just buying a house is going to understand it and experience it.
Yeah, that makes sense. How do you think AI is going to continue to expand and integrate just both in business and in society? What are your thoughts on that?
It's going to expand and grow. Again, this goes to what we talked about with what are the things it can help me do. It's going to run into hurdles because it's funny. We talked about the laggards, right? The people that are going to drag their feet to get into something. There is an interesting population of people who would seem to be laggards and instead they're early adopters, but it's almost they're jumping too soon. I'm going to throw all my chips into this basket because it's brand new, it's trending, and it's going to do all the things. But then you still have implementation issues because it didn't do it. So I feel like while AI can do a lot of things for us too, we're going to have these dips and flows where it's going to help things get better, and then it's going to be 2 steps forward and 1 step back because we moved a little too quickly. And now we have to go back and figure out why things are messing up and why, I mean, we've had so many breaches of people who are pushing code, and I'm all for vibe coding. There's no reason to have to try to pull that code out of fairy dust in the air, as long as you're somebody who knows still what is the proper coding structure, still looking at securities, still making sure that you're checking for your verbiage and all your different, linting errors, right? But if you're just like, boom, let's run it. Like I said, we go into the SaaS and I built something, I'll just use it myself, but you didn't go through all of the steps and all the pieces that make it be successful, we become 2 step forward and then 1 step back.
Yep.
And we're going to have to backpedal. We've had so many hack security breaches because people pushed some code too quickly to production. Now all the credit cards are out, and it's a fun thing to watch us grow because we run faster, I think, than our feet can carry us sometimes.
No, that's very, very true. I've been excited to see all the advancements that we've seen in Claude and OpenAI and everything in between. It's been pretty amazing. That platform I was telling you about, AI acquisition, just seeing the changes and improvements that they've made just since I think August or September of last year. So it's barely been a year, not even a year yet, and just the leaps and bounds improvements they've made is just absolutely incredible. They went from having to integrate, I don't know if you've heard of Instantly before. Instantly helps with cold outreach.
Okay. See, I don't get a lot of the lead development stuff. I do more back-end operations.
Back in, yeah. So with Instantly, you can upload a list and then generate campaigns to then have the AI reach out to, and then it'll do some auto responding and things like that to a certain degree. You got to pay for some credits and things like that. But originally that was outsourced to Instantly, and then they had this AI SDR which would do the correspondence that tied into the API for Instantly, but you had to have an N8N instance. Well, now you don't have to have any of that. All of that is integrated into the platform. So they've made, like light years ahead of where they were just 6 or 8 months ago, and it's incredible to see the platform and what it's doing. And one of our franchisees, the one up in Maryland, is actually using it right now, and he's gotten some pretty good results. Gotten a multitude of podcasts scheduled. I was getting him 4 to 6 a week. And I still haven't posted all of them. We're still working through all that. But we have our VA.
There's the edit.
Yeah, the edit part takes forever. And so I finally just said, we hired a VA and just said, hey, I need you to do this editing. And she got them done. And then it was like, okay, well, now I need to post them. It's like, oh, man, I got to add her to the YouTube channel and get the channel set up and get the podcast created and then get her to start uploading all that stuff. And yeah, it's been slow going, but I think we're finally in a good place. And then have you ever heard of Spreaker?
I don't know that one either. Man.
Almost like Speaker.
This is great. I'm getting to learn about all new stuff.
Yeah, almost like Speaker, but with an R in it. And Spreaker basically goes through and Spreaker will go through and allow you to put audio only version of your podcast up online, and it'll blast it out to all the different podcasts, like, Apple and all those other kind of different ones.
Oh,
So
I
there's
used one for the distribution. What was it? Because I had a buddy and I that thought like, oh, we're gonna do a podcast, and I mean, we recorded like 2 episodes, and then we never went back to it. But we used what was the distributor? Sprout. Sprout was I think the one that we did it with. And so that's where you sign up to all of the different ones. And so then when you upload it, they'll then put it with all of the different distributors.
what's it called again?
Sprout?
How do you spell that?
Yeah. Buzz, Buzz, Sprout, like a plant, Sprout.
Buzzsprout. Yeah, okay, I see. I'll have to look at that. Interesting. Free podcast hosting. Nice. Maybe that's like Spreaker. I hadn't heard of any of these systems before, and our franchisee was like, "Hey, have you ever heard of Spreaker? I'm going to upload the podcast." He's actually really going all in on this podcast thing. I think it's good because it creates a sense of authority. Like you're authority in the technology space. You have these guests on. You talk with them about their business. You share your insight on technology, and I think he's really enjoying it. So
Podcasts, when it comes to marketing and content creation, they're the gift that keeps on giving because you can record it, so you have the whole video of the podcast, but then you have the audio, so it's two separate pieces. But then you can also take the transcription and put that transcription into a blog if you want to for people who are going to be reading it. And then you can cut all of this down into micro video bites that can be shared on things like TikTok and Reels and Shorts. And you can have one podcast that could turn into probably a month's worth of content just depending on how you do it.
No, yeah, it's great. So with this one, we'll get ours turned around. The one we're doing right now, we'll get this turned around pretty quick and get it posted probably within a week or two.
Awesome.
The other ones, man, they've been sitting there for a while. We're finally getting it.
Like I said, my buddy and I, he did, because he's the one that, and it's on him because he's had to do so much work for it. That's why I have the proper XLR headset, because we're like, okay, like we're going to do it. We recorded 2 episodes, we published them, and we had them going, and then we recorded a bunch more, but, we're all working, we're all busy. He hadn't had time to really sit there and go through it and edit it. He's really good camera videographer guy. He's got all the equipment with all the proper audio, so it's how do I make the audio work. I don't know how to do any of that. I rely on him for that stuff. Who knows? Maybe one of these days we'll get ours going again.
Well, to kind of wrap things up, would you mind sharing some contact information for yourself? That way, in case any of our audience would like to reach out to you regarding any development or marketing or systems or anything like that you could help them with?
Absolutely.
Maybe share that with us.
I keep my stuff really, really simple. It's just Killian Consulting. And while I really, really wish it was KillianConsulting.com, that's a whole other story I'll have to tell you another time. It's not. It's Killian.consulting. Or if that one is too confusing because it's a .consulting, KillianConsultingFirm.com will also get you there.
Okay.
That's the best place to reach me. That'll have all my contact info, and we can talk about any kind of services. Like I said, breadth of knowledge, and then I go depth whenever I need to. And I love that I have partners like you who, when it's something that's outside of my reach, I don't do managed service provider work anymore. But you know what? I know a guy. He's really great. He does good work.
I appreciate that. So what would be your ideal client if you could share with our audience, somebody who's looking for?
I love working with somebody who is a new business owner, small business owner, and they're just feeling overwhelmed. And they go, I don't know, I have to take care of this, I have to take care of that. I got you. That's what I do. I have the list of these are all the things you're going to have to take care of. If you're like, well, I don't know what I'm going to do for my website, or I don't know what I'm going to do for, managing all of my client information, or I don't know how I'm going to handle my scheduling. All of that also ends up kind of integrating. Or if we're going into your project management, I've worked with solo business owners where it's just them. They're the only ones. They're doing it all by themselves, and that's just too much. You want to focus on the thing that you're good at. So let me help you with the things that I'm good at that get your business going. Yep. But I've also worked with teams that, again, they need that little bit of help of scaling up to where they want to go. If they want to 10x their business, how do they do that unless they have these systems in place?
No, that's awesome. That's awesome. Well, hopefully some of our audience can connect with you and get the assistance they need to kind of get their businesses off the ground and start really scaling. So I really appreciate you taking time out of your day-to-day, Bailey, to have a chat with us and kind of share a little bit of your insight and some of your knowledge over the years. And it's been great working with you over the years. And I look forward to collaborating in the future.
Sounds awesome. I look forward to it too.